Hi, good morning to everybody coming from East Africa, Nairobi. Yeah, and good evening, or is it good night to?
It's good. Oh, hi everyone. I'm joining from the western part of Canada. It's evening now, almost 11 p.m. and I've really been looking forward to this this webinar. So happy to join you and all geared up for this. Thank you, Amos.
We have some awesome presenters. Monica Wambugu, David Wambugu from Microsoft.
Thank you so much for the introduction. We are really honored to be part of you guys. As Amos has explained, my name is Monica and I'm joined by my colleague David. I think I'll let you, David, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is David, Monica's colleague. Back to you, Monica.
Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen real quickly so that we can begin. Oh, sorry. I should have started from the top. So thank you for joining us. As I said, I'm Monica and that's David. We come from the Africa Development Center. So Microsoft ADC for short is a development center that is in Nairobi and Lagos. And it began last year. I think some of you know about it. You might have heard about it in the news. So we come from there. This is some of the work that is being done in the Nairobi team, by the Nairobi team. You have people who are working on Azure, people who are working on Windows Compat, people who are working on Microsoft Graph. David and I in particular come from a division called Identity, and in our division we pretty much work very closely with Graph, so helping Microsoft teams who want to expose their APIs on Microsoft Graph to be onboarded onto Graph. So we work on a technology called OData. Some of you might know about it. Yeah, and PowerApps and the Power Platform is actually one of our main customers because they expose their APIs on Graph and they consume other APIs that are used by other teams on Graph. So we are excited to be taking you through this. In case you can't hear, somebody can tell me.
There's a lot of activity, a lot of innovation, a lot of passion happening in Africa, and that's what we're bringing to the table.
It's just great to see such a vast depth of technical talent in the region for us to come and be a part of. And when we do this, we're going to be part of the community.
The talent pool is so wonderful, and the expectations that they have for the future are big, bold, and ambitious stuff. And you want to be a part of that energy and enthusiasm.
It's really an indication of the interest that the company is taking in saying that we want to understand this emerging market.
I'm looking to learn, I'm looking to get started, I'm itching to go spend time so that organically we can grow it together.
Africa is a real unique opportunity. Average age of 19 years old, 1.2 billion people. We're opening these development centers in Kenya and Nigeria, where you see just this growing population of people who are very qualified for the kind of work that we do.
We have billion-plus devices running Windows, hundreds of millions of application versions out there. Our compatibility effort for the Windows APIs and the Windows platform itself starts and ends with big data and analysis on really 1 billion endpoints and hundreds of millions of applications. And so we're going to have a team working on that problem.
These engineers are part of the community, and they're able to come up with unique perspectives that we might miss otherwise.
Our focus in Lagos is going to be around our mixed reality services. Mixed reality services is the thing that makes our mixed reality devices, from phones to tablets to, of course, HoloLens, connect to our intelligent cloud. And as we build those teams, the objective is to make Lagos part and drive forward the scale of that service worldwide.
Having a development center in Africa is going to be a game changer.
10 years ago, I would never have imagined that Microsoft would open a development center in Africa.
To actually now see this level of investment, especially around skills, around engineering, is the first. And so I take great pride in seeing this coming to life.
It's all about empowerment. The fact that we're able to use this opportunity to really live our mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more.
Okay, so thank you guys for that. I hope you have enjoyed that. I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk about the ADC because as Africans, I think it is important to know about these opportunities, and also there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of hiring opportunities that are there. So please check out our website, microsoftadc.com, and please go ahead and apply for positions there. So back to the topic of the day, Power Platform and specifically PowerApps. It really ties in closely with Microsoft's mission. And Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And when you think about that mission and then compare it to what PowerApps does, it's like it's a one-to-one mapping. So PowerApps, if you think about it, the main value proposition is this idea of democratizing the app building experience, right? You don't have to be a software engineer, you don't have to have taken computer science or IT or anything in that space to enable you to be able to build applications, and not just any applications. We are talking about professional grade applications, right? So it's not only democratizing AI, but it's also, democratizing business application building, but also democratizing the ability to really innovate quickly. So in most companies, you probably find one IT department, everybody goes to them if they need something, and most times they might be swamped. They might have too many apps to build and too little time. So with PowerApps, even though it might still be built by, apps might still be built by the IT department, see that they are enabled to really innovate quickly and prototype quickly, be able to serve the needs of various teams who want different types of applications. So that's the big value propositions, the value proposition of PowerApps. And really, there are three types of PowerApps that you will find on Microsoft's platform. So the first one are called Canvas apps. And as the word suggests, you're really starting from a blank canvas and building a user experience that is elaborate and rich, right? And then you have model-driven apps. As the word suggests, you're coming from a model, right? So you're coming from some form of data that you have. David is going to talk a lot about the data and how it needs to be structured. So you start from the data and then you build this user experience and this business application that makes use of that data. And then thirdly are portals. Again, as the name suggests, portals are all about like websites, external facing websites. And these websites can allow users outside your organization to be able to sign in, create and view data, and even do more things within that portal. So those are the three main apps. Now, but as we talk about Microsoft PowerApps, I think it's also important to realize that PowerApps don't exist in an isolation, right? Now I've put this photo here to make everyone hungry because it's morning, it's early in the morning. But also to say that, PowerApps is just one piece of the pie. And there are three other tools that are very, very key to the whole Microsoft Power Platform. So I'm going to hand over to David for a few minutes to take us through the other three parts.
Thank you, Monica. So the other three parts of the Power Platform, Monica, could you move to the next slide? Yes, thank you. So we do have the Power BI, and this allows you to be able to create interactive dashboards that provide actionable insights. And this is just, you're limited by your own imagination and when it comes to what you can do with Power BI. As for Power Automate, this allows you to create workflows that directly map to business logic in your organization. And an example that I normally like to give is whenever a certain, say you have a car leasing application, and whenever any person leases a car out, you want a specific notification to be sent and an email to be sent to a certain approver. That's something you can have with Power Automate. And the last one is the Power Virtual Agent. And sometimes we like them, sometimes we hate them, but virtual agents enable us to create chatbots that engage conversations. And what you can be able to achieve with this, plus some of the other platforms that are part of the whole Power Platform pie, is that all these four technologies work synergistically to be able to provide you with all the power. And the whole mantra is, with less code, you can do more. So it's always about coding less and having more power. And this doesn't limit power users or people who have coded for many years. If you want to go that route and have a custom logic, you can have that. And part of that is also enabled by our connectors. And as you can see, the Power Platform will have a lot of, you can ingest data from different data sources. And some of these data sources, you can be able to connect to your on-premise or the cloud, SharePoint, SQL Server, Office 365. And this is just to name some of the most popular ones. There's a plethora of data sources, and in this we'll have a demo whereby we'll show some of them in use, and also how you can start with all the data that you have in your business and start by creating your first Power App. So just to talk about some of the data services, we do have what is called the Common Data Model Schema. And in the previous slide, you saw there's the Common Data Service. And the Common Data Model Schema allows you to have models that have been predefined for your specific domain. So for the sales domain, a customer is defined, a competitor is defined, discount, the concept of a discount is defined. If you move over to the healthcare system, or if you're building or consuming data from a healthcare system, then a patient is defined, an episode of care is defined, an encounter, all that is there. And the Common Data Model Schema is actually open source. So, and that's the whole mantra of also what Microsoft is doing. They open source this, and we have multiple people working on it. Onto the next slide, we're going to see what the Common Data Service is. And this builds on top of what we showed in the previous slide. And it allows you to be able to have this common data service that has storage, business logic, where you can define your entities, business logic, and it also has security predefined inside it. And what this allows you to do is you can be able to store model business data and at the same time have this data ingested and shared between different applications that you do have. So in the next slide, Monica, I'm actually going to hand over to Monica to just give us something little about the AI Builder. But before I do that, I'll just say that the Common Data Service gives you so much power, but at the same time, I know some people will ask, if you're already a Dynamics consumer, why not use the Dynamics connector, because that also exists. And the simple answer that I like to give is that there's so much more that you can achieve with the Common Data Service, as this talks directly to the data layer and also exposes a very rich metadata alongside your data. And over to you, Monica.
Thanks, Dave. I think I'll go into the AI Builder. So this is supposed to be an introduction to PowerApps. So we are not going to get very sophisticated, but I thought that it's important for us to talk about how you can be able to make your apps intelligent. And the reason is because anyone can build an app. Yes, you can build an app, that's nice. But when you add intelligence, then you really get people interested, right? And so I wanted to highlight some of the main kind of value propositions or the main features, cool features that AI Builder has. If you're a Power App user who's really sophisticated, you've probably already used some of this. For example, the first one and probably the most popular one that people know of is the form processing feature. And what this allows you to do is really perform information retrieval. So if you have standard documents in your company, maybe you have receipts, you have application forms, you have invoices, or anything else, that any form of document that has like a standard look and feel. These are some documents that could be fed into the AI Builder. and really you'll be able to retrieve the information that is housed on those documents. The alternative, I guess, is to have people manually enter that, which is probably not a good thing, and which is riddled with errors, and also you're just going to have extra hands for no reason. The next really cool thing is prediction. So anyone who has done any form of AI or machine learning knows that prediction is probably one of the most applicable areas of ML, because it has so many applications in so many fields. If in the banking industry, for example, you're always trying, when somebody walks through the door, you're trying to figure out, is this person going to repay the loan that I give them or not, right? If it's in the medical field, doctors are trying to predict or figure out what is the probability that this person has this disease. So all those are examples of predictive kind of scenarios, right? And so the AI Builder is a great tool that can allow you to be able to perform predictions and be able to categorize things in certain groups and what the likelihood of them being in certain groups is. We have object detection. So object detection is an application of like the computer vision side of the AI Builder. So if you are in a company where you deal with images, maybe it could be people in the field who go out and they take some form of images, or it could be any form of image, and you want to be able to pick out certain things within that image. You could be able to create an object detector, and what that object detector will do is that it will be able to pick out specific things, right? And later on in the demo, I'll show you a very simple object detector for cats and dogs. But in the real sense, in the real world, it could be paired up. You could pair up object detectors with something in Power Automate, for example, where you say, if there's something in this image that looks like this, then I want this to happen, right? So there's a lot that you can do with object detection. And then obviously text is also a very big a big data source. So we are also doing text classification. Text classification has a lot of applications as well. If you think about it in terms of how we receive comments from, as businesses, we receive comments from people, they tweet to us, or they write in some shape or form, they send us messages, they tell us, I love the service, I hated it, or this and this and this. You could be able to classify text in different groups and maybe even say, this is a positive tweet, a negative, and a neutral, for example. That's just a simple example of text classification, but there's a lot you can do with text beyond just that. So I've included a small link that has information on pricing. So that's not just pricing to do with the AI Builder, but pricing in general of PowerApps. So you can go ahead and check out that link. Maybe to hammer and to talk a little bit more about the AI Builder. And also just for the benefit of all of us. So the idea here, especially with regard to PowerApps, is that you could have an app on the end, the end user has an experience with an app, but that app is making use of a model in the background, right? So for example, I've given an example down here, and if we start with the end on this side, I hope you guys can see where I'm highlighting. You can imagine it could be a nurse, something like a nurse, and the nurse is trying to enter data. New patients come in, she or he enters the data for these patients. And the idea is this app could potentially just do a simple prediction. What is the likelihood that this person is diabetic? And what is happening is that app could be making use of a model that has been trained using data points that are related to, being diabetic or non-diabetic, right? So, for example, I've given here an example, data points such as the BMI, the blood pressure, age, class, gender. Doctors can tell us which other data points are important. So assuming that you, in the medical profession, for example, you have access to that kind of information or that kind of data, then you could easily build a model using the AI Builder and then connect your application to this model and then be able to make those very cool predictions. So that is it for the AI Builder. I hope you guys go out and try it, and especially after I do the small demo. So the demo that we're going to go through has three main objectives. So the first objective will be to show you just simple how to input and retrieve data from a data store. So for my part, I'm going to do with Excel, but we're also going to see something else that's a little bit more sophisticated. And then we also want to see just simple things like sorting, refreshing, searching. Now, if you're a Power App user who has been using Power Apps for many years, you probably know that you can do a lot more than that. I would get into all those details, but I think we will. I'll give you an extra link. There's an extra link for at the end of this presentation. There's that link that really gives like a whole. Like a lot of other projects that you could do and many other features that you could try out on your Power Apps. So let me go back, and then finally I'm going to show you that simple AI builder that I built yesterday actually for object detection. So let me just go ahead and switch. But before I switch, we are going to kind of pretend that we have a company, and the company basically is a tour company, and what it does is that it takes you on safari, right? So let's imagine that, especially now this period of COVID, hopefully after this we can all go for holidays somewhere fun. So imagine we are all part of our company, and that is a safari company, and we just want to do a very simple thing. We have an Excel sheet. I'm going to stop sharing, and in particular, let me just minimize this. So I have the packages, what I'm calling packages, the different packages. Wait. Okay. So what has happened automatically is that PowerApps has actually taken my data and already created some form of an app from that, right? So this particular app has, I can actually just go ahead and play it for you to see how it looks, right? But this is probably not how I want it to look. This is not what I have in mind. You are probably going to start from designs that you already have. So this might not be the process you take. And then there's what you're trying to accomplish from that. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to show you how to kind of edit and make this kind of app better. So as you can see, I'm in kind of like the design makers mode. That's the page you're seeing. And on the left-hand side here, you have different screens. So for example, I can say I have 3 screens. I have a browse screen, I have a detail screen, and I have an edit screen. At the top here, I also have like different actions. So for example, I can be able to insert different things. I can be able to insert a chart. I can be able to insert icons. So fancy icons like this button, the add button, the sort button, the refresh button, all those fancy buttons. You can even see that there's an AI builder, and you can actually add something like, let's say, an object detector, right? These are premium features, but you can see that you can be able to add, if I had an object model somewhere, I could potentially add an object detector here that would allow people to upload their images or scan their images and then be able to detect whether the object is there. And so on the right-hand side, so if I was to select any of these elements, on the right-hand side, you see that you can really edit a lot of things here. You can edit the font size, the weight, all these fancy things to make it look and feel how you want it to look and feel. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show the first one. So let's say I don't want the hotel. Also, maybe just to highlight that here there's a small formula at the top. So I've selected this Mawindo Resort element, and then it has shown that this is displaying the hotel. So maybe I don't want the hotel to be displayed. Maybe I just want the title of the package to be the one that is shown, and you can see that automatically changes, right? The next one is showing full board. This is the meal plan. Sorry. Yeah, maybe I don't want that to show up. I want something else. And for this, I'm going to show, let's say, the offer expiry. But something else that's kind of fun is that I could even, on this formula, I could append my own text very easily. So I'm just gonna append some text. So for like Power App gurus, this is probably very low level, but I think for anybody who's new, hopefully this will be helpful. And let's say, yeah, that updates, and then let's say for the last one, we pretty much show maybe cost, right? Cost in dollars, and then perhaps also append something. So this is like a very simple. Has it changed or not? Oh, sorry. Don't know why I always do that. So yes, so that has appended the dollar. So that is kind of like, this is a view of all my packages that are there, and I've kind of just shown you how to edit the first screen, which is the browse screen, right? So let's say I want to edit the detail screen, which is kind of like if I want to zoom in a bit more into each of this. As I said, each of these could be edited, and I would really encourage you to make use of this right-hand side. Any of these elements is really up for grabs. You could change anything and everything to make it really look how you want. You could change the color, you could change, what should we change next? The size, it's all up for grabs. Anything that you feel you want to highlight or zoom in, you could pretty much go in there and change. And then going into like the that screen, this is also pretty neat because you could, let me display it so that you can see how it looks. This is how it looks. Maybe I don't want it to look like that. Maybe I want people to be able to edit the title before anything else. So even in terms of like the ordering of these things, I could pretty much come here and change the order. So let me say I swap the cost with the title. So let me select cost for now. I would need to come here and unlock this, and then come down here and change. So the XY variables in this particular case just determine the position, and I could come here and say I want it to be at the end and switch this to kind of be at the front. You can see as simple as that, and they have changed. But you can go ahead and play around with each of these things in terms of the height, the width, the orientation. All of these things are up for grabs. Something else that you might also want to do is maybe make some fields mandatory. That could also be, let me just play it for now for you to see, so you can see how it looks, right? But you might want to kind of add a little bit of what you'd call like form validation, so to speak. So you can go very complicated, but for the sake of just showing you, I'm just going to show you a very simple thing in terms of just making it a required field. Let me select something. So let's say the Amboseli one, the title. And I could come here and make sure that this is something that is required by simply changing that to true. That will automatically add an asterisk and make sure that, you know, nobody can input data without this being, this field not being there, right? It will give a very big warning, a very big error. And the error itself can also be customized, but we won't get into that for now. So that's a basic like Power App, but just to switch gears a bit, because I've talked a lot about the AI builder, I really wanted to show you something about object detection. So most times when you open your Power Apps, you'll see it on the left-hand side. You'll see an AI builder here, and then you'll have the option to build your models. So for example, for me, I have selected this object detection option, right? You can see there are a few other, like the entity extraction is in preview, and even the text classification that I explained is also on preview. But I'm gonna kind of show you the object detection. We're not going to create a new model. right now because it might take a bit of time past what we have. But I'm going to show you an app that I've already built. So this is an app I built yesterday. And just to show you what I used, this was my data. Let me make them extra large. I pretty much just had dogs and cats. It's a very simple thing, and my data set also has a lot of problems because it doesn't have variety. I just have like one cat, one dog. In a more representative sample, you'd want a dog surrounded by a horse with chicken, with like a lot going on, with like a vehicle. Like you'd want a very busy kind of image, and within that image, you want to just pick out what the dog is. So my data is definitely not the best, but for the sake of demonstration, I think it will suffice. I'm gonna edit it a bit just so that you can see the process I followed. Let's see if the demigods accept this time around. Okay, finally. So the first step is going to be selecting like your domain. So for this, I just selected common objects, which is really easy. And then I kind of selected the objects that I wanted my model to detect, right? So I want a cat and a dog. Those are the two categories. But typically, you would probably want to add more things depending on like how busy your images are, or what you're trying to pick out, right? So those are the two things that I was trying to pick out. I uploaded my 30 images from my deck. So I had 15 images of a dog and 15 images of a cat. You could easily add more images in case you have more. And when you add them, you could add them from each of these data sources. You could be getting them locally, SharePoint or Azure. By far, I'd say that the longest or the thing that takes the most time would probably be the tagging, because you need to go in and tag the images. So for example, this is a cat and this is a dog, right? Again, as I said, ideally you'd want very busy photos, and photos with dogs of all types and sizes and shapes and all that to make the model as robust as possible. You also want to have more than just 15 cats or 15 dogs. You want to, this is like the bare minimum that you can have, that the application will allow you to train on. But if you have like 200, 1,000, the more the images you have, the better. So the tagging might be what might take a bit of your time, because you have to do that manually. And then finally, you simply go ahead and train your model. So because my model is, I'm going to overwrite what I've already trained to show you the retraining. But because my model is really small, it trains really quickly. Now, if you have a very big, data set, if you have thousands of images or hundreds of thousands of images, then obviously the training will take a bit of time. And that's why it actually suggests that, your model is training, it will take a while, close and come back later. But what I noticed earlier with mine is that it took very few minutes, just because it's really not that complicated to train. Also, just for the sake, it's still training. But I think I can show you, let's see how long it takes. If it will take shouldn't take too long. But as it trains, I could show you, I guess, a quick test using an image. So it's important that you, like for this particular test, I'm using an image that I did not train on, right? So that I can be able to validate that, this is actually doing what I want it to do. Otherwise, you'll have trained it using the same image and then test it. That doesn't work. So it's important to test with kind of images that the model has not seen before, because if you were to deploy something like this into the real world, you would want it to see, it would be presented with images that it has never seen before, if the model has a persona. So you can see it pretty much this is I think this is using what I had trained before. So it's estimating with a 97% probability that this is a dog, and it's estimating with a 93% probability that this is a cat. So this is a really simple model, and you'll see down here that it has given me a small warning to tell me that this is not like a very good model. This 100% looks a bit too high in terms of my accuracy. And part of that is because I have very few images and they're not diverse enough. So if I had like more variety, I would actually make sure that my model doesn't overfit and that my model is actually very robust. So I think I'll pause there and hand over to David. I'll stop sharing my screen for a second and then hand over to David to show us a few more things.
Hi, Monica and David, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, great. Probably before we move on to the next bit, I'm seeing a number of questions, and David, okay. I guess you've responded to quite a number of things. Probably it would be good so that they don't accumulate too much at the end of the webinar. So Victor was asking about, he's interested in being considered as part of the Power BI team and being, please guide. Yeah, Victor, as I told you, you could join with the WhatsApp group. We'll also share a feedback form, and you can leave your details so that later on you can present. Hilary was asking about using XML as a data source. I know, David, you already responded. Probably it's not available for everyone. David, do you have something to say around that?
Yes. So I think if you do Google, there's some people who are already using XML as a data source. The way I would probably do it is I would import the XML data into Excel and then use Excel as a data source. I find that to be the easy and the stress-free way. But at the same time, you can also ingest it by using some of the internal functions. And one of the functions I replied to Hilary is there's a person who does it using converting it to JSON and then ingesting that. Yes, I think that's it.
Oh, perfect. Jesse was asking about any skills required. Monica, I guess you've showed us that no coding skills are required, I guess. Yeah, so you can basically pick these up. You don't need to have any prior coding experience. David from Uganda asked about examples. And I see David Wambugu, distinction is good. David Wambugu has just given the the link to some case studies which can showcase some of the apps that are there. Belinda asked about once you create a form, how can the information be pushed to core business systems and in what format? I know there's a long response. Monica, you have something you can say about that?
Let David answer that one because it's connected to the data.
Okay. David, since you actually are the one who gave the long comment, maybe you can just summarize it.
Okay, so it pretty much depends on the connector that you're using. But yes, once the form is submitted, the data will be persisted back to the core business persistence layer. And if you're using the CDS, it's also available to any other application that's also using the same CDS connection. So that's the short version of it. For the long version of it is you need to look at the common data source service and just read some of the capabilities that it allows you and what it supports as its persistence layer.
Perfect. Patros was asking about best way to learn DAX, and I've seen, David, you've already shared a couple of links on that. And Edgar was saying that, if we could get the content so that you can move along with the tests. Edgar, great idea. Possibly, in the subsequent webinars, we should arrange so that you get the content maybe before we start actually the presentation. But I guess right now, if we start, setting that up, it might take some time, and we only have a few minutes before we end the presentation. So I'm seeing more questions are coming in. We'll keep looking at the comments and giving feedback. So I guess David, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you a simple application that I built. And the use case for this was, is it possible to have an application that, sorry, I think I want to say. So a property management application, and what I wanted to show in this is the data sources that I'm currently consuming from. So in this, if you click to the view and data source, you can see that I'm using Twitter and Excel, because Excel is actually really easy, but you can also add another data source. For the sake of brevity, I will not add an extra one, but you can, if you come to this, you can see all the different ones that are supported. And the good thing is that you have most of anything that's on Azure, you have access to it, and there's a connector for it, or you can still use the common data service or the experimental version. The difference being there's new things that are in the experimental version that are exposed in the API layer, and you can work with that if you really have some coding experience. Just to showcase what I built and the way I integrated it, is that I really wanted some of the employees in my system or myself to be able to slack off at sometimes. And since I'm a Twitter addict, I added a Twitter feed that I could access from the application. So I'll just go to the Twitter screen. This is what you'll see. And the way I coded this up is that I have a gallery, and the gallery is the same thing that Monica showed you earlier. And it's a list. There's a vertical gallery showing you the list of items. And the items, you can select them here and set the items. I think on Monica's slide, it was on select, because she was really working around with the transitions, how you enter data and all that. On my side, I just want to show you the items, and what I have here is twitter.home timeline. And this is what we can see. If you want to switch this to something else, you can switch this to, let me switch to Twitter. What's the other thing? I want to search a tweet. And in this case, my search query is going to be any suggestion. PowerApps. Let's use PowerApps. PowerApps. Spelling is horrendous. And if I do click enter, search tweets. If I click this, you can be able to see what the data is and what is being fetched if you want to work with a data record. And what this table helps me to do is that once I'm binding these things, what do you call them? The data items to the gallery, I can be able to use the columns here at the top. So in this case, I just want to change something very simple. That's the subtitle. And what I want to do is, instead of having the subtitle data item, the data that's binded to it should be that. I want to change it to, and it's gone. Oh yeah, it's here, Twitch text. So it's, the Power Platforms allows you to see extra things. Like when you're interacting with the data, you can also see, in this case, I want to do tweeted by. I want to switch it to tweeted by, and then the title is going to be the tweet. So this is going to be tweet text. And this just shows that at any point in time, as David had, no, not David, someone had asked if you need any coding experience. Not really. If you can interact with the data with this, you don't need any coding experience, but it does become a bit helpful later on if you're working with what do you call it, flow, when you're adding flow to your code. And what I just want to show here is some of the tenant collections. So this is the data that was fetched from my Excel data source. So there's a tenants collection. There's also the contacts and that. So let me just run this application just so that you can interact with it very fast. So I'll just go to home. And oops, sorry. Oh, did I run it the right way? Okay, let me just start from here and run. So we can we see that this is the suits that are available. I want to reserve this for myself because I am that person who likes to have the first building. So I'll just do that. use form feed, and then just do this as Nairobi. And if you want to interact with PowerApps, there's a lot of applications that have been built in the pre-built gallery, and you can have these applications, or you can instantiate any of them. And as you can see, David Ombongo was added, and he's a tenant to suit 100. If we come to Twitter, I get to see myself slacking and just reading about PowerApps. So that's just the brief demo that I wanted to give. Since we're running out of time, let me get back to answering questions. And yeah, so I'll stop sharing and we can go back to answering more questions. What other questions do you have?
Yeah, amazing stuff, David. Wow, wow, wow. Getting the presentation.
I'm also thinking
and anybody who had registered or my internet. I told you challenges. Yeah, you can hear me now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I was saying.
And you're gone.
I was just saying, I think we'll prepare it as a content pack. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Keep on going.
Oh, okay, okay, great. Yeah, so we'll prepare it as a content pack and then possibly share after to anybody who had registered, and those guys will leave their contacts on the feedback form. And Kiwendo, you also asked if it is possible to join the user groups. We initially had the SharePoint user group, but now it's transitioned to what we're calling the digital workplace transformation. So we cover topics from everything, Azure, Power Platform, Power BI, Power Apps, Flow, or not Flow anymore. Are we allowed to say Flow?
I think Automate is better.
Yeah, Automate.
Okay, okay. Oh. Power Automate. But sorry, my apologies. Yeah, so all those topics we talk about quite a number of things, and you know there are different people with different expertise. Yeah, and you can get to also share your expertise. We are happy to accommodate everyone and you know get to hear feedback. So we've shared the feedback form. If you have a moment, you can please you know give us some feedback. I've seen another question from Jesse. Can you publish the apps on Play Store, Apple Store, and Android Play Store? David, Monica, who wants to take that?
Let me take that. So kind of. So the answer to that is kind of, and the reason for that is that the Power Apps require a very specialized runtime. So the way you can publish it is you can publish it for consumption on Android, but then the people will need to download the Power Apps runners for Android or iOS. But yes, you can still use it. At the same time, all applications are published as web apps. So you can also use the URL, and it looks really good on phone. It really does. So I'm not sure if I've answered that question very well, but if you want it to run natively, it will need the runner. Otherwise, you can publish it as a web app.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So something else, I guess, also when it comes to what we've just discussed and you know the earlier questions, how do I get started? If I am not, you know, in our organization we do not use Office 365, or I'm not part of, like I don't have all these. So how do I get started? If I've seen this, it's interesting, it's awesome. Yeah. So how do I get started?
Maybe one of the suggestions I could recommend is you could get, like, some of what I have shown you actually you could get on like a trial. So I would suggest you just go in, sign up, maybe to just demonstrate to your leadership or to somebody else, you know, that this is possible, this can be done. You can go ahead, register and sign up with just your Outlook or whatever Gmail account you have. You'll get a trial period, and then during that trial period, you might be able to demonstrate just to show that you can actually build an app. You might be getting it from, let's say, Excel or something else, but at least you'll still be able to demonstrate the value for that. And you'll be able to learn a lot of things about PowerApps. I don't know if, David, you have any other recommendations?
That's a very good answer, Monica. What I just want to add on is that if you work in the healthcare industry or government or nonprofit or an educator, you can get access to PowerApps for 6 months, especially right now when there's COVID-19. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
there's
just
some
head to
benefits of
PowerApps.
COVID.
Yeah. So you can use that.
Perfect. So there is one more question by Edgar. How is the security around these? I know we are almost running out of time, probably a few more minutes, but yeah, we'll take probably 2 more questions. But David or Monica, you can take this question on how the security is around if I'm to expose the apps outside my organization. I guess there are 2 questions: exposing the app outside my organization network, and the security.
Let me take that one. So for the exposing the application outside the organization network, that's possible, and I guess you get to define what the specific rules you want while you're publishing it, as well for data security and actually a lot of fine-grained security. If you do use the common data service for your application, then you get to benefit from like very fine-grained entity, and also not just the entity itself, the entity fields. You have fine-grained security on who can edit that, who needs what, and that's baked in. So security is baked into the platform, but you just need to choose the right things for your application depending on your security needs.
Super. I guess we have about 3 minutes remaining, so that we can end the current webinar. Probably another question is, this is an intro. So Monica, David, how about something more advanced? Are we going to be expecting some more advanced series around the PowerApps? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we've kind of been torn. We wanted to do a Power Platform, kind of like showing the entire, like the whole suite of products, not just PowerApps, but PowerApps, Power Automate, and maybe even the virtual agents that are kind of maybe newish. So we want to hear, maybe this is a great opportunity to hear from the audience in terms of, would you like to see more PowerApps, or would you prefer perhaps more things maybe with virtual agents or with the Automate? We are really open. It's going to be up to the public to decide. We'll take your feedback and then we'll act on it. Yeah.
Yes.
Super. David, you have something to add?
Maybe just one thing, and you can also indicate if you want to show a code approach, or do you also want to see the no code approach? Because most of the times with the Power Platform, you can, like we said, less code, more power. So, but if you wanted to have, maybe you wanted to know how to have your own plugin, or maybe use an Azure function to do some specific business logic, I think we can also accommodate that in a future, segment of the series.
Super. So I guess it's top of the hour. Thank you so much to everybody who's joined. Gilbert, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Just to confirm, how many guys did we get to attended the webinar?
Quite a good number, around 50 people. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks to everybody who joined. As Monica and David have mentioned, give us the feedback if you want to see more about Power BI, more about Power Platform. Do you want the entire Power Platform? Or I was told not to say Flow, Power Automate, or anything else. Just give us the feedback. Join the WhatsApp group. Give the in the group. Just raise a question. If you have any question, we have all these experts and guys who are doing quite a number of things around these technologies. Should we take these 2 more questions? I'm seeing there's a question from Evans and Dennis. I didn't want us to go past the time, but probably David or Monica, you can answer on Evans is asking about being accessible outside for web. Dennis is saying about if we can have this as a series. Becky is talking about a practical approach. Okay, so we'll just keep on getting all the feedback, and we'll share, the more on into the WhatsApp group so that we don't go beyond time. I'd like to really thank all the guys who have come together to make this webinar possible. First of all, our presenters, Monica, David, thank you for making the time, the efforts, preparations, and making sure that we had one of a very good webinar that was quite informative. I've learned a couple of things that I didn't know that you could do, which is amazing. Thank you so much, David and Monica. Gilbert, thanks for organizing. When it comes to the technology behind and setting up the webinar and stuff like that, you've always done an amazing job. I'd like to also give a shout out to Becky, Ricky, Dennis, of course, we have Dennis Korir and Dennis Ngahu, Julia, we also had Mercy, Silas, Solomon, Mike. I hope I've mentioned everyone who came together. Joel, that actually did in the preparation of these banners and the images and stuff like that. Thank you guys so much. This has been amazing. Unless you have a parting shot, Monica, you have a parting shot, David?
Maybe my parting shot is just to say thank you for having us. We really enjoyed this and are looking forward to the future.
Super, super, great, thanks. Have a good weekend ahead. David, you have any party shot?
Can I sing?
Yes, please.
I'm joking. I am joking. It's been a pleasure, guys. And we're looking forward to the feedback. So just throw anything that you want included in a future series, and we'll try to tackle it to the best of our abilities.
Awesome. Gilbert.
Oh, I didn't get you. I lost you.
I'm asking whether you have any parting shot.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that this has been amazing. There's a lot of information there at all levels, and we're looking forward to the feedback from the attendees. I could see that there are lots of questions which made it interactive, and we are very thankful to that. So looking forward to the feedback form, as well as looking forward to the next event. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Then I guess it's top of the hour. Sorry, we went overboard by 3 minutes. Next time we'll try to make sure we keep it on time. But thanks, guys, everybody who's joined, and we are seeing all the feedback that is coming in. Amazing. Unless there's anything else, can we end? Can we end? Great. You're on mute, so all right.
Oh,
all right. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Bye bye. Enjoy the weekend ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.